She thought the day couldn't get any better. The moment the security badge hit the desk and the single dad walked out with a cardboard box, she felt a rush of pure satisfaction. She high-fived a coworker, laughed a little too loud, and already started planning how much easier life would be without him around. Then the boss stepped into the hallway, looked straight at the empty cubicle, and asked one quiet question that stopped everything. Where is he? If stories about ordinary people discovering the real power of kindness move you, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. You're right here with Whispers of Heart 0.2, and we're so glad you found us. Her name was Jessica, 34, sharp, always first to speak in meetings, the kind of woman who measured her worth by how many people needed her approval. She worked in a mid-sized logistics office just outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place with fluorescent lights that never quite felt warm and coffee that always tasted slightly burnt. Across from her sat Daniel, a quiet single dad who never stayed late for happy hour and always left right at 5 to pick up his 8-year-old son from after-school care. Daniel didn't talk much about his life, but everyone knew the basics. His wife had passed 2 years earlier. He wore the same worn navy sweater most days. He brought leftover spaghetti for lunch more often than not. Jessica saw him as soft. Soft people, in her mind, slowed things down. Soft people got in the way of promotions. One Thursday afternoon, a small shipping error crossed her desk. An order that should have gone to Chicago ended up in Cleveland. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough. Jessica reported it with extra detail, making sure management understood how careless the mistake looked. By Friday morning, Daniel was called into the glass office. 10 minutes later, he walked out carrying a half-empty box. Jessica watched from her cubicle, heart beating fast with something that felt a lot like victory. She texted a friend, "Finally gone." That afternoon, the team took a long lunch. Jessica ordered extra fries and laughed louder than usual. She told herself she had simply protected the company. She told herself kindness was for people who could afford to be soft. Then the boss, Mr. Patel, appeared in the doorway of the open office. He looked around, confused. "Where's Daniel?" Someone pointed toward the elevator. Mr. Patel's face changed. He didn't look angry. He looked almost panicked. "I need him. Right now. Does anyone have his number?" Jessica felt the first crack in her satisfaction. She had never seen the boss move that fast. Within an hour, the whole floor knew why. A major client, one of the biggest grocery chains in the Midwest, had called personally. Their regional manager was in town and specifically asked to meet the quiet guy who always fixed our last-minute problems without making a big deal of it. That quiet guy was Daniel. Over the past year, whenever a shipment threatened to miss a deadline, Daniel had stayed late on his own time, made quiet phone calls, and found solutions that never appeared on any report. He never asked for credit. He never mentioned the extra hours. He simply made sure other people's families got their orders on time so they could keep their own jobs. The client had noticed. They were ready to expand the contract if Daniel was still on the team. Jessica sat very still at her desk while the news moved through the office like a slow wave. She remembered the times she had watched Daniel pack up his laptop at 5 o'clock sharp and felt superior. She remembered rolling her eyes when he brought his son to the holiday party because the babysitter canceled. She remembered the small, almost invisible ways he had helped her once or twice, correcting a spreadsheet before it reached the boss, covering a call when she was stuck in traffic, without ever saying a word about it. By the time Mr. Patel found Daniel's number and reached him, Jessica's victory had turned to something heavy and cold in her chest. Daniel had already accepted a part-time evening job at a warehouse so he could still be home for his son after school. He wasn't bitter. He simply said he understood. Companies had to make hard choices. That night, Jessica drove home in silence. She kept seeing the cardboard box and the quiet way Daniel had nodded goodbye to the few people who still met his eyes. She thought about her own life. She had no children. She had no one waiting for her at 5 o'clock. She had built walls out of ambition and called them strength. The next morning, she arrived early. She asked Mr. Patel for 5 minutes. She told him the truth, that she had pushed the report harder than necessary, that she had wanted Daniel gone because she saw him as competition instead of a teammate. She didn't ask for praise. She simply asked if there was any way to bring him back. Mr. Patel listened without interrupting. Then he said something Jessica never expected. Daniel already turned down the client meeting. He said the new warehouse job lets him pick his son up every day, and that matters more than any contract. But he did leave a note for the team. The note was short. It thanked everyone for the years together. It mentioned that the coffee in the break room tasted better when people remembered to refill the pot for the next person. It asked, almost shyly, that someone keep an eye on the new intern who seemed lonely. It ended with one line: "Be kind when no one is watching. That's the only kind that counts." Jessica read those words 3 times. Something inside her shifted. She started small. She refilled the coffee even when she didn't drink any. She stayed late one evening to help the new intern finish a report so the girl could still catch the last bus. She stopped measuring people by how useful they were to her career and started noticing the quiet ones who simply showed up every day and did their best. 2 months later, the company found a way to bring Daniel back on a flexible schedule that still let him be home for his son. Jessica was the first person waiting by his old desk with a small plant and a handwritten note of her own. She didn't try to explain everything. She just said, "I'm glad you're here." Daniel smiled the same quiet smile he had always worn. "Me too." Years later, when people asked Jessica what changed her, she never mentioned the promotion she eventually earned or the praise she received for mentoring younger staff. She talked about a single dad who left with a cardboard box and a boss who asked one simple question. She talked about the moment she realized that celebrating someone else's loss never makes you stronger. It only makes the room colder. Kindness isn't soft. Kindness is the quiet decision to see the whole person, not just the part that competes with you. It's the choice to refill the coffee, to cover a call, to leave a note that asks others to look after the lonely intern. It's the courage to admit when you've been wrong and the humility to do better the next day. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice and the sharpest elbow, the people who last, the ones who build real teams and real lives, are the ones who remember that every person walking out the door is carrying a story you may never fully know. A single dad with an 8-year-old waiting after school. A quiet coworker who fixed problems no one else noticed. A woman who thought winning meant someone else had to lose, until she learned that the real victory is choosing kindness when it costs you something. So the next time you feel the urge to celebrate someone else's setback, pause. Ask yourself the question the boss asked that day. Where is he? Where is she? What story are they carrying that you haven't taken the time to see? Then choose differently. Refill the pot. Leave the note. Offer the second chance. Because the people who change rooms and change lives aren't the ones who win the loudest. They're the ones who keep choosing kindness long after the applause has faded.